If you were going to become a champion of cooperatives, particularly consumer co-ops, there was no better place to start than Berkeley, California, that hotbed of cooperation in the 1960s. From membership in the Consumers Cooperative of Berkeley, Ann Hoyt launched her remarkable career as an internationally renowned cooperative expert, innovative teacher, author, and board member extraordinaire. Born in South Bend, Indiana, to a former social worker and technical writer, Ann spent her early years in a kid-packed suburban Milwaukee neighborhood. For fun, Ann would pick out tunes on a rescued piano and stage magic shows and plays with Brother Joe and Sister Connie. A move to Chicago in the early 50s saw Ann becoming active in her church, singing in the choir, and joining Girl Scouts, which sowed the seeds of her future leadership. A life-changing adventure for Ann and her family took them to California for her father's job. They settled in Lafayette, near Oakland, where Ann attended high school. Her activities included providing accompaniment for the high school choir and performing in Oklahoma. It was in a great books class that Ann met Bill Hoyt when they were juniors. The two headed in their own directions to college, with Ann attending Carleton College in Minnesota, later transferring to the University of Minnesota. There, she became involved with anti-war protests, giving Ann her first experience in social justice, civil rights, and community action. After college, Ann returned to the Bay Area. She joined the Berkeley Co-op, little realizing the impact that membership would have on her life. She and Bill married in 1968 and left San Francisco to settle in rural Nevada City. Bill was selling textbooks and on the road a lot. With time on her hands, Ann went back to school as a graduate student in consumer economics at the University of California, Davis. As part of an assignment in a community organizing class, she studied a rural buying club that was part of a much larger consumer cooperative of Sacramento, a computerized federation of buying clubs. That case study grew into a master's thesis and ultimately into the board chair and volunteer manager positions at CCS. In that role, with infant son Asa in tow, Ann helped the co-op grow its annual sales to nearly $1.5 million, with no store. Instead, 3 Sacramento region warehouses served scores of buying clubs that delivered goods to members once a month. Ann, Bill, and Asa continued their eastward journey in 1976, heading for Kansas State University, where Bill earned his master's degree and Ann began teaching family economics. At KSU, she resumed her studies, delved into a course in co-op history, and received her PhD in 1984. By the late 70s, Ann was gaining a name in consumer co-op circles, particularly after her Women and the Cooperative Movement was published. That recognition, along with many speeches and more articles, led her to being tapped to run for the board of the National Co-op Bank. With her election in 1981, she became one of the first directors to represent the consumer cooperative movement. While on the board, she developed the bank's definition of low income, which guided its lending policies and those of the NCB Development Corporation. In 1985, Ann became an assistant professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in the Consumer Science Department of the School of Human Ecology and the Center for Cooperatives. She would spend the next 29 years there, immersed in cooperative education and research. Ann's work on boards, her teaching, and her passion for consumer cooperatives were becoming intertwined. In 1985, she also attended NCBA's Consumer Cooperative Management Association Conference, which included a session on director training. She gradually began conducting board education for consumer co-ops, recognizing that leadership and effective governance would strengthen co-ops and help them survive and thrive in a competitive business environment. Policy governance would become her byword for helping ensure co-op success. Anne initiated the Cooperative Management Institute, an intensive 3-week education program for food co-op managers. On the University of Wisconsin-Madison campus, CMI attendees engaged in a first-rate management course taught by UW faculty and experienced managers. CMI was instrumental in transforming consumer food co-ops from small counterculture concerns into larger, well-run co-op businesses. In 1990, Anne assumed the leadership of CCMA, which under her guidance became the conference for managers and boards of consumer food co-ops. Out of the relationships forged at CCMA and CMI were born the Cooperative Grocer Network, the Howard Bowers Fund for Cooperative Education, CDS Consulting Co-op, and the Food Cooperative Initiative. CCMA and CMI have been hallmark achievements in Anne's career championing consumer co-ops. The true measure of her success is a vibrant, consumer-owned food cooperative sector that is a leader in sustainable food and communities across the nation. But her pen has played a role too in improving board and operational performance. Many of the works she has authored are still considered go-to resources for co-ops and their boards. Lending credibility to her writing and teaching about boards was her own hands-on experience as a director. She served 6 years on the NCB board, 5 years on the Capital Impact Partners board, and 22 years on the board of the University of Wisconsin Credit Union. She was elected chair of each of these boards for a combined total of 13 years. During her long service on these boards, and many others, she was often the only woman in the room. Her board leadership has been characterized by her commitment to serving the best interest of the board members and encouraging governance excellence. Anne also turned her formidable research talent to determining the impact of U.S. cooperatives and strengthening co-ops internationally. Her work with the International Cooperative Alliance and NCBA-CLUSA has taken her to a host of countries, from Sweden to Singapore, Canada to China, Mexico to Mozambique. From her earliest days as a member of the Consumers Cooperative of Berkeley to her most recent research exploring cooperatives for prison inmates, Anne has made an indelible impact on the cooperative movement. She has challenged, organized, taught, led, and inspired countless cooperators, creating a legacy that personifies the cooperative philosophy of self-help and responsibility. Tonight, we honor this transformational leader and consumer co-op champion, Anne Hoyt, with induction into the Cooperative Hall of Fame.